You know, niggas gotta get their priorities together. Got their mind on the wrong things, spending their money in the wrong way.
Trapaholics, real trap shit.
Say you need that car with the rims and that charm, just like Jim. It's more than life. Yeah.
I'm telling you. Talk to him.
Say you need that LV bag
For what?
with the belt and the hat.
That's all you got though.
It's more than life. Yeah.
Talk to him. Real.
Say you wanna turn up at the club,
Why?
buy some bottles, impress them girls.
what?
It's more than life.
Oh, fucking everybody.
Yeah.
Damn, son, where'd you find this?
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Saints and Appetizers podcast. And who dat? And I'm Ethan. And, well, that was it. That was the finale, you could say, of the Saints' underwhelming 2022-2023 season. No postseason. They didn't last into 2023 very much because they didn't have any playoff games. And this game, it was very anticlimactic. I think it was very fitting for how their season had been. And a lot of people probably, whether you want to call yourself a real fan or not, probably wanted it to be like this. And maybe that was a good thing. Maybe it was a bad thing, depending on how you look at it. I guess it helps for draft positioning a little bit. I guess for a couple spots for their second round pick that they're going to get. But now the Eagles are fitted right there at that 10 spot. It kind of would have been nice if they didn't get a top 10 pick, but still they're going to get a top 10 pick out of that. But some also wanted Dennis Allen not to be on such a roll going into the off season. But I wanted them to kind of end the season and go into the off season on a high note. But just like the Saints have been all season. They've been very inconsistent, unpredictable in how they were going to play, and that held true in this game. And like you've heard before, they are who we thought they were, and they definitely showed that in this game. And I think we'll get into this a little bit, kind of talk about some of the stats that maybe rolled over into some of the accumulated stats on the season, and maybe talk about maybe some of the playoff picks predictions. And I wouldn't say they're predictions, but maybe who I want to win in the playoffs, and maybe who wins those games could maybe help the Saints in maybe acquiring some picks maybe for Sean Payton. So let's get into that right now. And so can I get a menu? And man, so this seems like during this 4-game win streak that they had going, this seemed kind of like a trend for them over those last couple games. That they started out hot. They started out hot in these games. They looked good early on. They've been able to score on their first couple drives, going up early, getting the lead early in these games. And they continued that in this game. They got the ball first in this game. And what did they do? They marched right down the field and got a touchdown. They went on what was it, an eight play drive, and capped it off with an Olave 25-yard touchdown. And that was a great play, with the way they looked early on. You would have thought, oh man, they're going to rout the Carolina Panthers after the way the Panthers struggled late in that game. against the Buccaneers the previous week and how their secondary looked in that game, you thought the Saints were going to be all over the Panthers from start to finish in this game, and how the Saints defense had been playing. But as you know, you saw this game. That's not necessarily how this game played out. So I mean, the Saints had this wonderful 8-play drive uh, where it was all spread out. You know, getting it to Olave, getting it to Rashid Shaheed, even David Johnson getting involved for a 21-yard catch and run. So that they were getting it to everyone. Eno Benjamin, the Cardinal running back, the running back out of Arizona that tore the Saints up earlier on in the season. They were just spreading it around to different running backs and receivers on this drive. And like I said, they capped it off with a 25-yard touchdown to Olave. And like you said, they looked like they were on a roll, but then things just bogged down from there. But their defense was amazing in this game. You know, you can't. I would not blame their defense for this loss at all in this game, because they were outstanding in this game. You could arguably say that maybe besides the Raiders game where they shut out the Raiders, that maybe this was their best game of the year, honestly. And it's sad that the Saints offense ended up playing so poorly in this game. Like, that's really what's disgraceful and embarrassing, is that the Saints defense played so well in this game for their offense to not give anything back for them. So then the Panthers get the ball, they have 5 plays, they punt it away, and then the Saints essentially do the same thing. They have 6 plays, they punt it away, and then the Panthers Saints get a 3 and out, force a 3 and out, and then the Saints go on a little drive of their own, and they end up getting set up for a field goal, and the majority of that drive gets set up and gets them in field goal range. And it got set up on a play where Taysom Hill got sacked for like 11 yards, but it ended up benefiting them because he got face masked on the play, and that was really the biggest play of that drive, and that ended up getting them in range for a field goal, and that put them like around the Carolinas 26, and that set them up for a 44-yard field goal. And you know, just when you kind of think that Will Lutz had kind of gotten things figured out, it seems like every time this year that you thought that about Will Lutz, then he misses ones. He misses, and that's what happened here. He misses a 44-yarder, and that you just can't do that. You know, anything under 50 yards for an NFL kicker, you know, should be a gimme. I guess to kind of correct that a little bit, like definitely anything under 45 yards should be a chip shot for an NFL kicker, and he's out here missing 44-yard kicks here, and that would have put the Saints up 10-0 with at the 14-20 mark in the second quarter, and he just misses it. And yeah, I mean, and what's so crazy about that is, so Will Lutz, I think I kind of looked into his percentage on the year, is like 77%, which I think is like one of the worst in the NFL. And then the Saints had Brett Maher on their team last year, who the Saints thought, I'm sure Saints fans thought was so horrible last year, and wished that they had a healthy Will Lutz last year, because they thought Brett Maher was so terrible. Well, Brett Maher, I'm not sure if he's a Pro Bowler for Dallas Cowboys this year or not, but he has like a 90% has been 90% on his field goals this year. So he's like Pro Bowler level this year and has made a a ridiculous amount. I think he leads the league in 50 yard field goals made. I can't remember where I saw it. I think he's made like 11 50-yard field goals or something like that. So it's just crazy. Like one year the Saints had Brett Maher on their team and Will Lutz is hurt. The next year the Saints get Will Lutz back and we're thinking like, hooray, we got Will Lutz back. And then he's terrible. And then the guy that we thought was so horrible and Brett Maher is like amazing for the Cowboys. And you can't say like, oh, well, it's because he was playing outside or something that he had difficult kicking indoors or kicking outside because he's kicking indoors in Dallas. So I just don't understand what the deal is. It shows you that obviously the kicking game is something mental. There's something mental there, or after Will Lutz's injury, the groin injury or something, he's never gotten right since that, or there's something mental. He's got the yips or something. But yeah, I don't know what happened till Will Lutz there, and obviously Brett Maher definitely found his groove with the Cowboys because the Saints probably would be in the playoffs. Just like we were saying, if we would have had a healthy Will Lutz in 2021, the Saints would have made the playoffs. If we would have had Brett Maher's production, like what he did with the Cowboys, the Saints would probably be in the playoffs this year. Had that 90 percentage kicking to the 77 that we have out of Will Lutz, I think we'd probably be in the playoffs right now. So after that, once again, the Panthers get the ball back from the missed field goal where they started at their 34-yard line. The Saints once again force a 3-and-out. And then the Saints, they go on a long drive, 11-play drive, where they get all the way down to the Carolinas 20-yard line. And I guess after the missed field goal by Will Lutz, I guess they don't have much trust in Will Lutz, even though they're up 7-0. I guess they think don't have a lot of trust in Will Lutz. I don't know if he has an underlying injury or they just don't trust him because he just missed that field goal. I guess from that distance, that would have been a 38-yard field goal, so it's not much shorter than the 44-yarder he just missed. And this hasn't been something until like the last couple weeks that Dennis Allen has done. He hasn't been real boisterous or big risk taker and going for it on 4th and short, but he decided to go for it on 4th down here, and they weren't even close in getting this 4th down attempt. They just tried to run it straight up the middle and actually lost 3 yards on a short to go. I don't know why they didn't. Every time they do a play like this, either it's 3rd and short, 4th and short, or just even if it's 2nd and short or any kind of short to go kind of situation, when they just try to run straight up the middle and lose yards with Alvin Kamara or any other running back, it always harps right back to like why didn't they try to pick that up with Alvin Kamara, or not Alvin Kamara, but Taysom Hill? It always goes back to any fan's logic. It's like why didn't they try to do that? Why didn't they try to get that with Taysom Hill? But that's exactly what happens there. So that they left points off the board there, but who knows? They might have missed it. And Will Lutz, with how Will Lutz has played this year, they may have missed it anyway. So who knows? So they missed that, and then the Carolina Panthers go on this long 14-play drive, and it looked for sure. When I was watching this drive, I was like, oh, here we go. It looks for sure that we gave them all the momentum there, missing out on that goal to go. They stopped us, so they got all the momentum here. It looks for sure like they're going to score a touchdown and tie this up going into halftime here. And It's 2nd and 10 at the New Orleans 29-yard, 29-yard line, and hell, Sam Darnold just threw one up into double coverage at the Saints goal line and got intercepted by Tyrann Mathieu. Honey Badger really looking like the Honey Badger of old, of LSU, of Arizona Cardinals, and then he picked Sam Darnold off and returned that sucker for 41 yards. There for a minute, it looked like he was maybe going to take that for a house call, but I think, Honey Badger, he's 31 years old. I think if nothing else, I think that wasn't necessarily the blocking or anything. If anything, I think he just ran out of gas. But yeah, I mean, he took that sucker back. He took that all the way back to the New Orleans own 43-yard line, and so it looked like with even just 27 yards, 20 seconds left in the 27 seconds left in the first half, that the Saints may still be able to come away with some points here. Because I mean, even though it's 7-0 with the way the first half's going, it felt like the Saints were just dominating this game. It may have been only up 7 points, but it felt like they were up like by 21-0, even though they only had 7 on the board. With the way this game had been going, they had already got the interception. They had, I think, 100 more total yards at this point. I think passing, I don't think the Carolina Panthers, Sam Darnold had like no passing yards at all at this point in the game. Like, I don't know if they'd even, I think they'd maybe only picked up like 1 or 2 first downs at this point. The Saints had just completely dominated the first half of this game, but had only gotten 7 points, which was just ridiculous. So the Saints started the drive at the 43-yard line, and right off the bat, on 2nd and 10, Andy Dalton completes a big pass completion for 21 yards to Juwan Johnson, and then they call a timeout, and then there's just 16 seconds left, and then Andy Dalton completes another pass for 12 yards to Chris Olave. And once again, here Chris Olave showing up. I want to fall in love with Chris Olave. I really do, because at this point he'd rolled over. He only needed a couple more yards to roll over to 1,000 yards, and he'd gotten his another touchdown, because I was wanting him to get to 1,000 yards and 4 touchdowns, and he'd gotten that by this point. But here he goes again. I've been really hard on him for fumbles and drops, and that's what he did right here. With his completion, if he wouldn't have fumbled here, he would have gotten to Carolina's 24-yard line, and that would have set up the Saints' possibility for at least an attempt at a field goal. Who knows with how Will Lutz was playing in this game, whether he'd have made it or not, but at least it would have given them an attempt. But, I've been really, really hard, and it was recovered by Xavier Woods at the 19, and I think he returned it. I think he returned it for like 30 yards. He returned it for like 30 yards. But yeah, I've been really hard on Chris Olave for just kind of being kind of frail and gets kind of pushed around by defensive backs and kind of butterfingers and fumbling. He's kind of been a microcosm of the Saints seasons in a player almost, but better obviously, because he was able to get 1,000 yards and 4 touchdowns. But he shows signs of just little annoyances that drive me nuts. Like I want to fall in love with with Chris Olave as a player, but just as you think that he's uh, can do no wrong and as amazing as he can be, then he does things like this that drive you crazy. Like he just I don't want to say this kind of stuff about him, but he almost has like no clutch gene, almost like fumbles at like the worst possible times or drops passes like on third down, things like that that just really dig at you that you can't stand. But yeah, that's something there that loses you points there. That's 3 points, another 3 points off the board that the Saints could have had. So the Saints easily could have been up 13-0 in this game if it wouldn't have been for that fumble and it wouldn't have been for the Saints missed field goal by Will Lutz. But obviously it would have taken two field goals made by Will Lutz. He would have had to make the first one that he missed, and he would have had to make this one that Will Lutz fumbled away as well. So would have been a lot of ifs, I guess. So then that ended up being the end of the first half because Carolina, they ended up just having the ball with about 3 seconds left and just kneeled it out. And then just talking about Chris Olave one more time in this game, I think at some other point in the game on third down, he ended up having a drop as well in this game. So he ended up having a fumble and a drop on third down in this game as well. So I'm harping on him just for this fumble, but I'll just state that I'm pretty sure he had a drop on third down in this game as well. So then the Panthers they got the ball first to start off the second half, and man, they looked amazing to start off the second half, and I think they only threw the ball like twice on that drive on their touchdown drive to start the second half, and it was like a 14 play drive. And they pretty much ran it on every play, and man, this is just pretty much sums up the Saints season here. It's like Sam Darnold ends up like rushing it in on a New Orleans one for like a two-yard like run or something like that, and he actually fumbles. He actually fumbles the ball. The Saints, I think it's Tyrann Mathieu actually forces a fumble, and then but the Saints aren't able to recover the fumble. A Saints defender, I think it was Shy Tuttle, actually gets his hands on the ball to try to scoop it up, but isn't able to get it. And then I think it was Michael Jordan, not the real Michael Jordan, but offensive tackle Michael Jordan of the Carolina Panthers ends up falling on it and recovers it for a touchdown instead, and that ends up tying the game 7-7. So that's just a good example of this, how the Saints season goes. That's the kind of stuff that happens. So they go on a 14 play drive like that where they pretty much run it on every down, and then they fumble it in the end zone, and a player, offensive lineman by the name of Michael Jordan ends up recovering it in the end zone for a touchdown. They don't even score traditionally on the drive where they get their touchdown. They have to score like that. That's how they got their touchdown, to basically on their way to beating the Saints. And then it's just and then for 7 straight drives, it's just an all-out punt fest, and it felt like it was just never going to end. And then Carolina actually throws an interception with just a minute and 47 seconds left, and that was at Carolina's own 13-yard line, from Carolina's own 13-yard line. And when that happened, and it was intercepted by Daniel Sorensen again, and Daniel Sorensen returned that for 14 yards. And that's like the second Daniel Sorensen interception in what, like 3 weeks that he's done that. And so Tyrann Mathieu has 3 interceptions, and Daniel Sorensen has 2 interceptions, and they both played for Kansas City last year, so that's kind of an odd stat there. And so he took that all the way back to the Panthers' 35-yard line. So that basically put them in field goal range. And when that interception happened and the return happened, I pretty much was celebrating. I pretty much thought that was like the end of the game. I thought they were going to win, which I should have known better because of the missed field goal earlier. And but I was celebrating as if the game was over, like, oh, the Saints are going to score. I guess I wasn't relying too much on that they were going to have to win by a field goal attempt, and maybe thinking that they were going to be able to maybe pick up a first down or maybe get closer to than just the 35-yard line. But they ended up not being able to get anything more than that. And then on 1st and 10, Alvin Kamara, 1st and 10 from the 35-yard line, Alvin Kamara rushes for no gain. And then New Orleans, Trevor Penning injured on the play, and he was injured with a Les Frank injury. So once again, since this is basically his second start of his NFL career, that he's ended up with some type of foot injury. So the third preseason game of the season, of preseason, he ended up with turf toe and needing to have surgery. And then week 18, he starts the final game of the regular season and ends up hurting his foot and having to have Les Frank surgery, and has a Les Frank injury and having to have surgery. And that is really sad and disappointing because he actually looked great in this game. I mean, they had him out running pitch play runs and just manhandling guys, and he looked great in the run game, and he only got beat like once or twice in pass blocking. So it's really disappointing that Trevor Penning, and at just less than a minute and a half, just like a minute and a half left in this game, there's only a minute and 36 seconds left in this game, Trevor Penning gets hurt. And that was very similar in the Chargers game. It was just like the second or third drive with the starters in, I think. He got hurt, so all the starters were about to come out in that game against the Chargers, the final preseason game, and then he gets hurt on the touchdown drive. When they scored the touchdown is when he got hurt. It may have been even on the point, the PAT, that he got hurt. So it's very similar to that. Like the game was about to be over and then he hurts his foot. So it's very, very disappointing that Trevor Penning got hurt at that point, because he looked great in this game and then he gets hurt at the very end. So, man, the Saints, 2 first-round picks in this game of this season have been, I don't know. I like both of them. I like Chris Olave a lot, but there's things that he does that annoy me. And then I like Trevor Penning a lot as well, but haven't got to see enough of him because of his injuries. The little bit I have seen of him, I like a lot. He's a beast. He's a large human being, and he throws people around. But man, his feet are made of glass. for some reason. I guess the weight, like his feet can't support his weight for some reason. So, but anyways, after that, it was just the timeout game that Carolina was playing, and then Carolina, the Saints actually had to call a timeout because of the injuries, which stopped the clock. And then 2nd and 10, Alvin Kamara rushed again for no gain, just no gain. Can't even pick up a yard on those 2 runs. Can't even pick up a yard to get any closer for Will Lutz. So you can't blame Will Lutz too much for that because they can't even get any closer for him on any of these plays. And then on 2nd and 10, actually loses a yard. So then on 3rd and 12, they go deep, incomplete to Chris Olave. So then they actually lose a yard. So it's 4th and 12 from Carolina's 37-yard line. So after all that, the interception, returning it for 14 yards, they actually lose 2 yards for Will Lutz. So then they're actually kicking a 55-yarder. So with how Will Lutz's season's been and missing a 44-yarder early in the game, I didn't have much hope that Will Lutz was actually going to make this field goal. And hell, there was still 1 minute and 24 seconds left in this game. So even if they made this field goal, I wasn't feeling overly confident that was going to be the end of the game, honestly. So then, of course, he missed it. It wasn't even close. He completely shanked it, which was just like, that was just awful. It was just like, okay, the Saints are going to lose this game now. So then, of course, the Panthers get the ball back at Carroll at their own 45-yard line. And, of course, they just march right down the field. And Sam Darnold had a lot to do with it. Hell, he was scrambling. He picked up a lot of it with his own legs. And, of course, they get down to the Saints 24-yard line and kick a 42-yard field goal and win the game. And that's pretty much the Saints season. And this game was just not pretty. This game was not pretty, but I don't put any of the onus on the Saints defense. I put the majority of it on the Saints offense for not producing more when they were in Carolina's territory, and they had more than enough chances with getting the 2 turnovers and Chris Olave fumbling and Will Lutz missing the 2 field goals. But yeah, that was just a very anticlimactic season for a very, very, very just lackluster season. So let's get into some of these stats here. Nothing too impressive here to really go over, but we'll just go over them real quick. So Andy Dalton, he was 15 for 25 for 117 yards, a 6.8 average, 1 touchdown. He was sacked once for 10 yards, a 48.3 QBR, 93.9 rating. So that's pretty much on par with what he's done all year. Just pretty much a game manager. But he had some really bad throws in this game. Just really like going deep when he didn't have to, throwing into double coverage when it didn't really, just like some odd throws, throwing behind receivers. Like his numbers here aren't terrible, but when you go back and watch the game, there were some throws there that were just kind of interesting. So we were going into this game when looking at his season stats, I was hoping he was going to throw for 300 yards and 3 touchdowns, and I was gonna allow him to throw an interception so he could get to what was I gonna say? Uh, so he could get to what 20 touchdowns and 3,000 yards, but he didn't even come close to those numbers. But Andy Dalton, he had his average type numbers, but really he didn't look great in this game because he overthrew some receivers, threw it deep when it wasn't necessary, and threw into double and triple coverage a couple times. He was lucky he didn't get intercepted in this game. And then similar to a lot of the games in this 3 game winning streak leading into this loss, Alvin Kamara had a really good game, which I'm surprised it didn't lead to the Saints putting up more points because he rushed the ball 23 times for 107 yards for a 4.7 average for 22 yard long, which is disappointing that Alvin Kamara didn't have more touchdowns this season. And then Taysom Hill only had 5 carries for 24 yards for a 4-point average for 0 touchdowns at 10 long. So it's like, why wasn't he in there picking up more of these short to go downs? Can't really explain that. Rashid Shaheed had 1 carry for 7 yards, a 7-point average, 7 long. Eno Benjamin, 2 carries for 3 yards, 1.5 average, 2 long. And then Chris Olave had 5 catches for 60 yards, 12 average, 1 touchdown, a 25 long on 12 targets. He was targeted 12 times, but only got 5 of them. That's pretty wild. 33. Rashid Shaheed had 3 receptions for 34 yards, 11.3 average, no touchdowns, 18 long, 4 targets. David Johnson had 2 receptions off of 28 with 28 yards, 14 average with a 21-yard long off of 2 targets. Juwan Johnson had 1 catch for 21 yards, 21 average, 21 long, and off of 1 target. Adam Trotman had 1 catch, 1 reception for 18 yards, an 18 average, 18 long, off of 1 target. And Juwan Johnson had 1 reception for 6 yards, 6 average, 6 long, 1 target. And Alvin Kamara had 1 reception for 3 yards, 3 average, 3 long, off of 2 targets. And with the 21-yard reception by Juwan Johnson, he went over 500 yards with the 7 touchdowns that he had on the season. So that was really impressive and nice to see that Juwan Johnson went over the 500-yard mark, and Alvin Kamara also went over the 800-yard rushing mark. So it's nice to see players like Juwan Johnson go over 500 yards. Alvin Kamara went over the 800-yard mark, and of course, Chris Olave went over the 1,000-yard mark. So that was nice to see players like that go over some milestone marks like that. And then some defensive stats. Tyrann Mathieu had 8 total tackles, 4 solo, 1 pass deflection, and also the interception. Marshawn Lattimore also had 8 tackles, 4 solo. Demario Davis also had 8 total tackles, 3 solo, 1 tackle for loss. Cam Jordan had 7 total tackles, 4 solo, 1 tackle for loss. Let's see here. David Onyemata had 3 total tackles, 2 solo, 1 sack, 1 tackle for loss, a quarterback hit. TJ Gray had 2 total tackles, 2 solo, a sack, a tackle for a loss, a quarterback hit. And let's see. And then Daniel Sorensen had let's see, had 4 total tackles, 3 solo, a pass deflection, and an interception. And let's see. And then Will Lutz missed both his field goals, made 1 extra point, so he has the 1 point. And then Blake Gillikin, he was good. Once again, Blake Gillikin, he was kind of had a rough start to the season, but was good, really strong second half of the season. He had 5 punts for 224 yards, an average of 44.8, 1 touchback, 2 inside the 20, and a 68-yard long. So there's some of your stats for today. And let's see. And so my hot takes were that I was hoping these are kind of more, I guess, maybe hoping, or I guess maybe kind of. The first one was kind of I was hoping to see that Rashid Shaheed would maybe burn C.J. Henderson for like a 50-something yard touchdown and go over 500 yards himself, like Juwan Johnson. But he ended up only getting 3 catches for 34 yards and not getting a touchdown. And it would have been really nice if he would have gotten a 50-yard bomb for a touchdown and maybe got the Saints another touchdown to win this thing 14-10. So that didn't happen. So that hot take didn't hit. And then the other one, which I definitely would put this as a hot take, because this was definitely going out on a limb compared to that hot take, because I think the Rashid Shaheed one was very doable. And I'm surprised with how bad those corners of Carolina looked against the Bucs last week. I'm surprised the Saints didn't try them, didn't pressure them more. They didn't try any real deep shots against them all day. But the other one was the sacks. The sacks. I was interested to see if Cam Jordan would get his other sack and a half to get to double digits. And I was thinking, oh, well, maybe he'll get one more to get to 9.5. But I was thinking maybe Caden Ellis would get 3 in this to get to double digit. But he ended up not getting any sacks in this game. Caden Ellis ended up only getting 2 tackles in this game, 2 total tackles. I guess they were both just two assisted tackles. So Caden Ellis didn't end up getting the three tackles, 3 sacks in this game to end up getting him double-digit sacks. So he ended up just finishing the season with 7 sacks on the season. So neither of my hot takes hit in this game. And then for my score prediction, I picked the Saints to win this game. You know, I thought the Saints would win this game, and the score was. I thought more points would be scored in this game. You know, I thought the Saints defense, you know, they've been playing so well recently. I think they've only coming into this game, they'd only been allowing like 13 points a game or so, and I thought maybe they'd allow a little more, but I thought the Saints offense would be better as well, because they hadn't been scoring much more than 21 points a game or 20 points a game, but they ended up looking worse in this game. But the Saints defense continued to look as good. But yeah, I predicted 24-17, and well, I wasn't even close, because the Panthers ended up winning 10-7, and yeah, so I wasn't even close on my hot takes, and I wasn't even close on my score prediction. And So it's interesting because it looked like Dennis Allen had a lot of momentum. It looked like he was about to have a 4-game winning streak going into the offseason. So with that, it leaves a lot of question marks kind of about how the front office maybe feels about him. But obviously, I think they're going to stick with him going into the offseason and going into next season. But maybe they don't feel quite as good about him as they did before. But I was starting to have kind of a funny feeling about him as well, because it's like, oh, winning kind of solves everything, and that was kind of how I was starting to feel about him too as well. But then you lose in this kind of fashion in the season finale, and then I remember he still has that eye patch on him. But that's enough of that. And so now on to the playoff picks. Onto the playoff picks and how that may affect the Saints and what they could get what they could get out of this, and how these decisions and how the outcomes of these could maybe help the Saints and where Sean Payton could land, and if these could affect Sean Payton, where he decides to go, or where the I guess the compensation could be affected, I guess, because there's some teams that might be interested in him if they end up getting bounced in the first round. So I guess we'll start um, categorically with Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. I guess we'll try to go in order here. So the first game of the weekend leading into Monday is the it's the Seahawks 49ers game, and that starts Saturday at 4:30 Eastern time. And with this game, I guess it's not really win or loss who I want to win necessarily, but I'm just I don't know if I'm gonna go with necessarily who I want to win or who I think is gonna win. I'm just gonna go with my pick here, whether who I want to win, or kind of confusing a little bit. I think I'm gonna really pick who I want to win in these games, not who I think is gonna win. But I'm just picking the 49ers in this game. So I think realistically, I actually think the 49ers are going to win this game. So picking the 49ers in this first game. And then in the second game is the Chargers versus the Jaguars. And that is in Jacksonville. And that is also a Saturday slate, part of the Saturday slate, and that's tomorrow at 7:15 Eastern time. And I think I'm going with the Jaguars in this game. I think they're going to win this game, and none of these games. Well, I take that back. I was about to say this game doesn't. I was about to say none of these games affect really the Sean Payton outcome, but I take that back. I think the head coach of the Chargers, if he gets bounced in the first round, that he could his job could be in jeopardy. Brandon Staley, I think that could be a place that Sean Payton could end up in Los Angeles. The Los Angeles Chargers job could be a place where Sean Payton could go. I don't think Brandon Staley's job is as secure as some people think. I think it was talked about early in the season that if he doesn't make the playoffs, then Sean Payton could go there. And I think I think Sean Payton has a house in Los Angeles. I think Sean Payton has ties with Drew Brees because Drew Brees uh, lives in Los Angeles, used to play there, so he knows he has a friendship with Drew Brees from obviously his time coaching Drew Brees. So he's real cozy uh, with Los Angeles. And Sean Payton has mentioned that he wants to play with wants to coach uh, in a place where it's warm and it's nice and sunny, nice weather, and nice beaches. So if the Chargers get bounced in round one by the Jaguars, no less, I think the Chargers could be in the running for Sean Payton, and they may fire Brandon Staley. So that could be could help drive up the price of Sean Payton if the Chargers lose round one and fire Brandon Staley. And then let's see, on to Sunday. We have the Dolphins versus the Bills, and that is at I think I said 7:15 Eastern time, and that's actually 8:15 Eastern time for the Chargers Jaguars game. And then and on to Sunday at 1 p.m. Eastern time is the Dolphins Bills game. And I'm gonna go with the Bills in this game, and man, that's a pretty easy pick because it doesn't look like the Dolphins are gonna have Tua and might not have Teddy Bridgewater. And this is another game. If the Dolphins lose this game, Mike McDaniels may get fired, and that once again the Dolphins may be in the running for Sean Payton, and they were looking to maybe hire him last offseason. They were maybe looking to hire him and trying to get Tom Brady in last offseason. So that very well could help in driving up the price once again for Sean Payton. So that would help if the Dolphins lose. So I'm going with the Bills in this game, and that could be more just want the Bills to win, just want the Jaguars to win. And then in the second game of the Sunday slate is and that's at 4:30 p.m. is the Giants versus the Vikings. And some people say this game is just a coin flip, but I think it's probably the Vikings that should win this game. But I want the Giants to win this game. And as a Saints fan, I don't think I should have to explain why I want the Vikings to win. But I also just like the Giants, and I think that kind of just goes back to the 2007 Giants, the 2011 Giants, the whole underdog story behind them, knocking off the Patriots those two seasons, and the hometown boy of Eli Manning, even though he doesn't play there anymore. But I just for some reason the Giants they have a soft spot in my heart. So I'd like to see the Giants knock off the Vikings. I just don't like the Vikings very much. So it'd be out of every team in the NFC, I think that's the only team I actually like. The only team I can stand at all is the Giants. Out of every team in the NFC, that's about the only team I could stand that would make the Super Bowl. And then the final game of the Sunday slate is the Ravens Bengals game at 8:15 p.m. And I think we'll go with Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase, and pretty much the New Orleans Saints North team. Basically, you got Von Bell and Trey Hendrickson there, and Eli Apple. This was the New Orleans Saints North team. So pretty much go with them, and none of those teams really affect the Sean Payton trade outcome or any of that compensation. And I mean, the Ravens, they're missing. They may be missing Lamar Jackson. They may be missing Tyler Huntley as well. So they may be missing their starting quarterback and their backup quarterback. So that would be a hard press to believe that the Ravens can win that game. And then on to the finale, the wild card round finale on Monday, and that's the 8:15 Eastern time, the Cowboys versus the Buccaneers. And this is really the worst game to have to cheer for or pick a team out of all the games. But don't really want the Buccaneers to win, don't really want to have to cheer for them. But it would benefit the Saints probably the most if the Buccaneers beat the Cowboys, because that would help a lot probably in the compensation for the Buccaneers, because I would find it very hard to believe that Jerry Jones would not fire Mike McCarthy if he ends up being one and done once again in the playoffs. And I would be very surprised if Jerry Jones would not sell the farm to try to get Sean Payton. So that would be 3 teams in the first round of the playoffs that may fire their head coach to try to improve their head coaching position, and they may all come for Sean Payton. So, it's just, you don't want to cheer for some of these teams, but when it helps your team future and helps your team for compensation, I can do it for a short period of time. And so if the outcome betters my team, I think I can do it for just the time being. And so hopefully they'll get a tough matchup the second round, and hopefully if the Buccaneers win the game, hopefully it won't give them any momentum, and hopefully they won't get on a roll like they have in previous playoff rounds. So yeah, so that's just kind of my playoff predictions, and more just hopes that if any of those playoff teams are one and done, that could help the Saints with the playoff compensation that they're trying to get. And it's kind of funny that these are the 3 playoff teams that are in the first round, and that they're fighting to not be one and done. That these head coach Mike McDaniels, Mike McCarthy, Brandon Staley, because I did a podcast earlier in the off season, leading into the off season, training camp and all that. I did a podcast talking about which head coach I thought would be fired, and which head coach which team I thought would fire their head coach, and which team I thought would trade for Sean Payton. And these are the 3 teams and 3 coaches I was talking about. So it's kind of funny that these 3 teams both actually ended up making the playoffs with those 3 head coaches. So it would be interesting to see if they both win in the first round, or if all 3 of them lose, or if it's just kind of a mix and match, if one of them wins or 2 of them lose, or if all of them win. But anyways, I think that's all I have for you. And who dat? And can I get a check, please?